like the nose of the jet ski would go up just from his weight holding on behind.
Wow, yeah.
And they would tow him over to a fishing boat or to one of the patrol boats, and nobody could get him up. It was impossible. So
you're listening to Radio Free Mike. Welcome to Radio Free Mike, the podcast about freedom and its discontents. My name is Michael Scott Moore, and just a reminder that our theme song is a live bootleg version of Radio Free Europe by REM. And today we're talking about Europe again. Jeanne Carstensen was in Greece as a reporter for the World Radio program when an overfilled boat chugging across a narrow part of the Aegean foundered and sank. Now she's written a compelling and humane book about the disaster, which happened in 2015, but still ranks near the top of any list of very bad Mediterranean shipwrecks. Jeanne's book is a Greek tragedy, and it's a definitive portrait of people who are dying on the water, even now, 10 years later. Jeanne, welcome, and congratulations on the new book.
thank you very much.
So you're writing about a topic that's interesting to me because I've been to the Mediterranean a couple of times too to write about immigration across it, and I'm now writing about the border, the southern border, the Mexican border. But you're writing about in this book, you're writing about one of the first really bad episodes in that sort of groundswell of immigration that happened across the Mediterranean to Europe in 2015. How did you first get interested in this particular shipwreck?
Well, I was there as a reporter. I had visited a few times the Greek island of Lesbos before, and so I'd already fallen in love with the place and was in love with the geography and had sort of tuned into some of the history of the island, Orpheus and Sappho and all of that.
Right.
And fast forward a couple years later, I realized that this was happening on Lesbos and that thousands of people were crossing every day. And I decided to go over there as a reporter. And so I spent a couple months in 2015.
Who were you reporting for? So you were already kind of on assignment.
Yeah, I was on assignment. I got a grant from the Pulitzer Center to support the reporting. And then I was on the radio a lot for The World. That was my main outlet. And that was fantastic working with them. And then I also was working with Foreign Policy and The Intercept and a few other places.
Oh, yeah. Right. We have so much overlap here and there. I've also worked with the Pulitzer Center a lot. They supported me before I went to Somalia, as a matter of fact, when I went to Somalia. And this was a perfect story for them too. And so what happened while you were on Lesbos? So first of all, why was that a focal point when immigration started? We should say that the immigration was happening because of the Arab Spring. So there was the civil war in Syria, which had been going on for a couple of years by then. There was Afghanistan and Iraq were still active wars, and people were leaving. And the way I understand it is that most of those immigrants sort of flooded into Turkey, and there was not much else in terms of work that immigrants could find. And so they started to move forward. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. It was Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon. Everybody thinks that, all the refugees, came to Europe right away. But there were something like 6 million, I think, in the region. And by 2015, those people, they had thought that they would be able to stay in neighboring countries for a few years and then go back. Nobody thinks a civil war is going to go on that long. And so that's what happened. They were not able to work and decided to try and come to Europe and perhaps be able to get asylum and build more solid lives for themselves there.
And Syrians in particular did not want to stay away from Syria. They were happy with their country, and a lot of them were middle class.
Yes, during this period, a lot of them were middle class. I think that's one of the myths of migration is people assume that these are poor people or downtrodden people. And while they may face problems and wars and other things in their countries, it's generally middle class or higher. They generally have some kind of education and support from their families. And at that time, it was very much middle class people leaving Syria directly and others that had been in Turkey and decided to leave. And I was meeting, every doctors or nurses or cab drivers or people with professions and very full lives. And no, Syrians love Syria and they did not want to leave.
No, one story I noticed when I was there reporting was that it was actually Syrians who flew to Libya at some point when they got frustrated with the crossing from Turkey, which we're about to describe. And it was Syrian money, because they had money, that sort of lit up the trafficking networks in Africa. So in other words, they went to Libya, and at that point, the movement across the Mediterranean from Libya was very minimal. It was a trickle, even though there was lots of stuff going on, lots of crises. And because of Syrian money, the price to cross from Libya went down. And it's been a route ever since for lots of other Africans.
Yeah, and a very dangerous.
A hugely dangerous one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So why was Lesbos a target? Why did Lesbos become an island where a lot of people were sort of aiming for in these rickety boats?
It's geography. If you look at a map or if you go to the region, Lesbos, it's the third largest of all the Greek islands. It's nestled right up against the Turkish coastline, as is the Greek island of Chios and Kos. These were other areas where people were traveling. And the other factor was people had been going on the land border across the Evros River from Turkey into Greece, but that had become more militarized and it was a harder crossing. Yeah. So in 2015, the smugglers just opened up this route, and it's about a 5-mile sea crossing at the shortest point from Turkey to Lesbos, and it just became like a highway, except it was on the water, right? People came in massive numbers.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the land masses are up against each other so tightly, you would think it's all one country.
Exactly.
It's incredible that this international border and this incredible cultural border between Islam and Christian Europe runs right down this 5-mile strait of water. I mean, we don't think of it like that most of the time.
No, we don't think about it. And, when I was there before this period as a tourist, I didn't think about it at all. Just like we don't think about these things. Right. And then all of a sudden, a place that you associate with, I don't know, good food and swimming becomes the center of a humanitarian crisis like this. And that's what happened there.
Yeah. Wow. So describe what you saw the day of the shipwreck, and then we'll go back and talk about some of the material in your book, because you do such a good job of detailing the lives of a number of people involved. I mean, the footwork you've done in the book is incredible, and the level of detail is really impressive too. What happened on, I think it was October 28th in 2015?
Yeah. So we were at the height of the crisis at that point, and 6,000 people were coming every single day. So every day it was like an ongoing humanitarian emergency. But October 28th was very windy. There had been small craft warnings. There were white caps across, and everybody was very nervous. Were the smugglers going to send the boats into this dangerous weather? Because everybody knew that it would be very problematic. So I was on the coastline, as I often was, reporting in different villages, and there had been numerous incidents. But around 3 p.m., I started to hear about on a WhatsApp group that there had been a terrible incident out at sea. Nobody knew the extent of it, but the word going around the island was that there were 300 or 400 people in the water. Wow. And so I was able to go up to a viewpoint on Lesbos and borrow some binoculars and look out, and couldn't see much, but I saw a smudge of orange where a lot of people were in the water. It's very emotional. And also all of the rescuers on the island started jumping into action as word spread around.
On their jet
island.
skis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was it that faltered? What kind of a boat?
Well, we didn't know at the time, but after I did all this investigation, I learned that it was a 2-story boat that might have been, it was a boat from Turkey that was out of service. I found out later that it did not have a VIN number on it. It was basically not seaworthy, but as commonly happened, the smugglers over there had grabbed this thing and through their network spread the word that the boat was going, and what they do is they sell it as very safe, that it's safer than going on a raft. And so they tell people, oh, you're going on a yacht, and they pay double. People really want to be safe, so they believe it. And,
right. And I mean, it might be bigger, but this one was also taller and therefore less stable.
As it turned out, there's a lot of factors, but it was a double-decker boat, and the Turkish fishermen that had seen it leave. I found this out many years later, but they told me that it was the kind of boat used in Turkey for weddings and things like that, like
weddings,
a party so
boat.
Imagine people, dancing up top and drinking some raki. But that was not the experience that these people had. And then they drastically overload it. Somewhere between 350 to 400 people crammed on.
Which is incredible. And there was a scene in your book where some of the people had arrived, I think, from Afghanistan, and they saw all the other people waiting to get on the boat. And they told themselves, oh, these people are here for other boats. And then everybody sort of got on the same boat.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's sort of hard to explain if you haven't been close to it, but everybody wants to stay safe, and they want their family members to stay safe. And they choose smugglers that they hope are trustworthy. And the smugglers tell them what they need to hear for them to kind of keep going. And one thing that they often promise is, oh, don't worry, there'll only be a few people on the boat. It will be completely safe. Right. So that's one thing. When people actually got to the coast where the boats were leaving from, they would see that there were hundreds of people, and that in fact it was not a safe situation.
Right. Yeah, and that's become easier for smugglers in the meantime because of social media, hasn't it? I mean, the last couple of decades have really changed human traffic, because a smuggling network can sort of pose almost as a travel agency.
It is like a travel agency, and honestly, people need these people to get where they need to go, because they don't have a legal way of just, money was not the issue for these people. Right. They were paying really high prices to get on the boats. The issue was they could not get a visa to, say, fly to Germany and then ask for asylum. So they do function like travel agencies because we don't offer a legal avenue.
Because there's nothing else, right?
There's nothing else.
But there's a moment too in your book that I noticed where a bus driver, without very much weight behind him, right, not much firepower, stopped the bus and demanded $500 from or 500 euros from everybody, and there was kind of an uproar, and they got on their phones, and I think he had to move the bus again without getting any money. But that kind of thing happens a lot in these situations.
Yeah, and people don't really have much power. I mean, in that situation, which a young woman who was on the boat, she described that to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might not have any option. Sometimes somebody could pull out a weapon. Right. You just don't know. And when people did get to the coast, weapons were present, and people saw these weapons. And there was really no way for people to turn back.
Yeah, right. Right. So the Turkish traffickers, at some point you mentioned who they were run by. You called them the organization, which is essentially the Turkish mafia.
Mm-hmm.
Did you learn very much about the trafficking networks?
I have interviewed some smugglers. Most of what I learned was...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this has been a free preview of this episode. And the whole thing is open to paid subscribers to Radio Free Mike. So if you'd like to hear the rest, please hit the link in your show notes or in the body of the email we've sent you and upgrade your subscription over at Substack. Then you'll be able to listen to the full episode on any platform. Thanks for listening.